Let's continue our conversation about what went down in Nashville. Alabama, number one team in the country, finds a way to lose to Vanderbilt. Again, scary Saturdays are upon us. Did not think it was coming to Nashville, that's for certain. Welcome on into the SEC Unfiltered Show, Part 2, post-game reaction, presented to our friends over at GameTime. Download the GameTime app and use the promo code SECU for $20 off your very first purchase. $20 off when you use the promo code SECU at the GameTime app. Alabama finds a way to crumble under the pressure. But more importantly, this is a major stand for, I think, Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, of all teams, the ragtag, lackluster, overall curb stomp of the SEC is the one getting the job done. But surprisingly, we should have expected this. Not saying that we should have expected this type of game, and certainly not against number one Alabama, but we should have expected that eventually they were going to knock down the giant. Look at how they look. Look at how they played for 3.5 quarters and then in overtime against Vanderbilt, a team that had turned the corner. Virginia Tech, a team that had turned the corner. 97% of returning production back. Everyone pegged them as a dark horse to win the ACC. They march on into Nashville. They get their asses handed to them. They need a fourth quarter comeback by Allie Jennings. Major touchdown from Kyron Jones, but it didn't matter because you had Diego Pavia on the sideline. 2 weeks ago, they're playing at Faurot Field, Columbia, Missouri, against a top 10 Tiger squad. Eli Drinkwitz is supposed to have this roster humming. Good overall balance on offense. Great 1-2 combination at the running back position of Marcus Carroll and Nate Noel. On top of that, wide receiver number 1, Luther Burden, and it's Vanderbilt delivering the punches. It's Vanderbilt making those other jabs. It's Vanderbilt finally capitalizing and giving the crushing blow. But unfortunately, double overtime happens and they just can't get the job done. But they were going to win an SEC game. I told you that Vanderbilt was going to win an SEC game. Nobody thought it was going to be against Bama. But Diego Pavia showed you last year he could be in the SEC. And that's kind of where I want to start before we move on over to Bama. We always start with the winners on the show. Did anybody learn anything from last season when Diego Pavia was playing at New Mexico State? Doubt him, fear him, watch him not be able to meet your expectations. But don't worry, he'll meet the expectations of somebody, and he'll give you the performance that you'll be talking about on a Sunday morning. That's what you saw when he marched on into Jordan-Hare Stadium, an environment that we consider toxic, hostile, up there as one of the more detrimental, lethal ones in college football. And he marched on in and had over 250 yards of offense and found a way into the end zone 3 times to get a massive upset against the Tigers. But it was not good enough to be in the SEC. We heard people all offseason. You know, this is why I always have problems. We heard people in the offseason say, well, it was just Auburn. Well, it was just Auburn. It was just, no, it was not just Auburn. It was Diego Pavia delivered. It was Diego Pavia answered the call. And what's really funny is that imagine if Diego Pavia was lining up right currently at Jordan-Hare Stadium, because they need a quarterback this offseason. Would Auburn be sitting at 5-0? Potentially. But he goes to Vanderbilt. Already has a good understanding of the offense headlined by Tim Beck. Already has a good understanding about where this roster is and how they've been playing, because a lot of them came on over from New Mexico State when Jerry Kill resigned. A lot of them decided, if we get an opportunity to play in the SEC, Vanderbilt might be our best shot. And so they did. So the uniqueness was already there. The identity was already there. The relationship was already there. Eli Stowers, who you heard a great shout out from number 2 himself, who currently is the number 1 quarterback in college football, he delivered. You saw it. It was perfect. It was everything that you want to see from a Vanderbilt roster. And again, they capitalized on mistakes. Batted ball up in the air. Jalen Milroe. Well, don't worry. We'll scoop that one up and we'll gladly take it back for a 38-yard touchdown and we'll make it 13-0. Nobody's going to be complaining as we watch as Randon Fournette runs it back. Nobody's going to be complaining when you see a fumble on a big time hit. Recovered by Yelani Otero for a touchdown. By who? Who else? Diego Pavia to Cameron Johnson for a 6-yard score. How about before that? Eli Stowers for a first down. Quincy Skinner for a first down. Constantly moving the chains, putting the pressure on Alabama's defense to have to deliver. Alabama having to be the team that gets that punch. Alabama having to be that team that everyone's wondering, when is this going to be coming back? It was Diego Pavia coming out on top. more first downs, more total yards, almost as many passing yards, more rushing yards by a significant amount, fewer penalties, no turnovers, and they controlled the clock 42 minutes and 8 seconds. How would you not love college football? Because you don't see this type of nonsense in the NFL. You don't see this type of aura on game days with Sundays, but you see it on Saturdays, where every single week somebody can come out on top. I told you guys, don't go golfing this weekend. Don't be making plans with the missus. Don't be trying to go ahead and do chores around the house. Pull out your inner Tom Sawyer. You're not Tom Sawyer. You're not Samuel Clemens. Mark Twain didn't write you to be doing chores. And by the way, for those of you that are paying attention, Tom Sawyer tricked everybody into doing his chores for him. Your girlfriend doesn't need you. Your wife can take a Saturday off. You can hang out with her on Sunday. The kid's got a soccer game. That's cool. Tell mom to film it on the iPhone. You got college football at your hands. And this is one of those weekends that you couldn't sleep on. You want to know why? Because there was going to be an upset. It happens every single year. How do you not realize it? Every year that you think it's going to be a quiet Saturday afternoon, somebody lets you down and it becomes the talk of Sunday morning talk radio. It is. I didn't think it was going to be Bama. Now, if you're Vanderbilt, let's talk about where you go here. Your best is ahead of you. You're not going to the college football playoff. I don't see a scenario where you would be 10-2 making it to the college football playoff because I just don't think you will go 10-2. That's just my case. But every game, you are going to be a threat. Every single one. Against Kentucky, against Ball State, when Texas comes to town, Auburn. Don't think for one second that Baba Yaga is not looking forward to be planting his roots back at where he became an icon. Don't think for one second that you can't beat up against a South Carolina squad. Don't think for one second you can't hold your own against Tennessee if they end up playing down to the level of competition. Let's be real. You're probably not winning all those games. But the defense, you forced Alabama with a ton of 3-and-outs. Your offense played a consistent tone. You brought the punch to the number one team in the country who last week looked like an unstoppable force bulldozing through movable objects. That was you. You have the ability. You 100% have the ability. And you can start next week against Kentucky. By the way, congratulations are in order. For those of you that took the over, for those of you that hit the over on the future of Vanderbilt football for 3 or 4 wins, you got it tonight. Many people would have thought maybe you got it 2 weeks ago against Mizzou. You maybe would have gotten it 3 weeks ago against Georgia State, but you got it tonight against the number one team in the country. And Nashville Broadway will be singing a sweet song, and it's Down Goes Bama. First time in program history, the number one team loses. First time in program history, Vanderbilt beats the top program in college football. First time in 23 matchups, Alabama loses to the Commodores in their backyard with the stadium to where midway through the fourth quarter, where construction's going on, everyone is stopping what they're doing and they're realizing they're about to witness history. They're about to see what is going to be a moment that won't be forgotten in the program's lore. And they were a part of it, building that stadium, being in that atmosphere, being in that building. On a day where college football just went off the rails, on a day where you would have never thought Bama was the one dropping the L. Alabama does not lose that often to unranked opponents. It's happened 3 times in the last 6 decades. And the last time was against it was 2021 against Texas A&M in their backyard. 4 times. It's a moment that you get to celebrate if you're a Vanderbilt fan. It's a moment you get to bask in if you're part of the Commodore Nation. It's a moment that you get to hold that too. It is. Now let's talk about Bama. Now let's talk about the harsh reality that is moving forward. It's a bad loss. It is, because it's against an unranked team in their backyard. And as fans jumped over US Bank railing and onto the football field to celebrate in the gold and black, you saw as now your season, all that hope, all that energy, all that praise, that vindication, the glory, everything that you saw, that now is out the window. And it's time to get back to work. You had your 15 seconds of fame beating up on Georgia. Kalen DeBoer comes on in, feels like he is the right person for the job, thinks that he is immediately going to be just the Nick Saban 2.0. There were people talking about him being as the second best coach in college football. Nope. Can't be doing that anymore. Now it's time to get back to reality. Every team in the SEC is at either Vanderbilt's level or slightly above it. And if you don't deliver a B+ performance, if not an A-, you're walking away with an L. And then see how people are going to feel about Kalen DeBoer. 2 weeks ago, we were talking about him. If he gets a massive win against against the Georgia Bulldogs, guess what? Oh, everything will be fine. It's just Alabama didn't go ahead and regroup. They just replaced. That's all it was. Not anymore. Imagine you lose back-to-back games to Vanderbilt and South Carolina. Do you know what the phone lines are going to sound like on Paul Feinbaum's show? Do you know what people are going to be saying in the comments section when we do preview videos? Do you know how people are going to react to the moment that is Alabama football whenever you bring up Kalen DeBoer's name? It's like basically saying Satan is existing. That's how it's going to feel for some Bama fans. Some Bama fans can tell you right now, because I grew up with the Alabama Crimson Tide, I'm an Alabama alum, they're going to immediately say Kalen DeBoer was the wrong hire. We need Nick. They're going to do that. Now, here's the good news. Alabama will be fine. Alabama will be fine. Do you remember back when Nick Saban was hired in 2007? He lost a game, pretty significant one. And it wasn't to an SEC opponent and one that was even close to the level of competition that you saw on Saturday. No, he lost to Louisiana Monroe. That's who he lost to, the Warhawks, a team that for the last decade has been a disaster in the Sun Belt. And thankfully, they hired Bryant Vincent, and things are seemingly turned the corner, which maybe UAB should have taken a notice on that one, but still. And Nick Saban went on to win 6 national titles and multiple college football playoff appearances and countless SEC titles and a handful of All-Americans and how good knows how many first-round picks. Everyone knows that. You get one. You get one in your first year. Even a coach that has been to a national championship and nearly come out on top unscathed gets one. Nick Saban won a national championship in 2003 when he was down at LSU. He lost to Louisiana Monroe. You get one. That was your one, though. Now you can't look that way against South Carolina with a better defensive front. I'll say it. Vanderbilt found a way to come out on top, and they earned that win. They 100% earned that win. But it wasn't a pretty one, and more importantly, it's a one that you can hold your hat on, but there are better defensive fronts. Missouri is going to feel a lot more confident now when they have to travel into Bryant-Denny Stadium for what feels like, this moment, a winner-take-all showdown. Now you have to play up to a certain standard when you travel to Baton Rouge to take on Brian Kelly and the Bayou Bengals. Now you have to play up to a certain standard when you go to Norman, Oklahoma. Now you can't afford to have the type of performance where your offense is fumbling and being fetal and fickle at the wrong times against an opponent that you feel like on paper you're better than. On paper means nothing anymore. It's the SEC. Honeymoon period is over. Wake up and smell the coffee, because if it's about to burn you in the face, that's what you're dealing with at this point if you're in Alabama. But you'll be fine. You will. Great coaches find a way to regroup and respond. It will happen. But nothing is guaranteed anymore. Alabama, I don't know where they're going to fall in the AP poll. I can tell you where I'm going to put them next week. Probably in the wait and see, because I kind of have to for the tier ranking. I don't know if they're going to be a guarantee to make the college football playoff if they were to go 9-3. In fact, I can almost promise you they're not going to the college football playoff at 9-3 with a loss to Vanderbilt. And even 10-2, you got to look good in those games. You got to look great in those games. You got to respond. And you can't just trust Ryan Williams, who, as we have to say in every single show at this point, did you know that he was 17 years old? It's literally the new. Did you know that Matthew Stafford played baseball with Clayton Kershaw? Wash, rinse, repeat. You can't just rely on him to get the big time play. You can't just rely on him to be open for 56 yards. And you can't just rely on Jalen Milroe to trust his legs when you have two running backs in Jam Miller and Justice Haynes, who are 5 stars that currently look like 2 stars. You can't. But the good news is that everyone gets one. In the great words of Spider-Man, everybody gets one shot. You blew yours on the road in Nashville, and now as you head on back down to Titletown, USA, you have to sing a sorrowful tune while the Commodores get to celebrate on Broadway. That's what you get. At this moment, it feels like Texas is a guarantee to make it to the SEC championship. Now, I'm not ready to put the wagon before the horse because weird things happen in Dallas. Sometimes the inferior team comes out on top, and that's their marquee victory that they get to hold their hat on. I'm not ready to say that Georgia, the way that they played against Alabama, was going to be the way that they play against Texas. I'm not ready to do any of that. But it does feel like Texas is at least in the conversation as the front runner. Georgia's close behind in Tennessee. They're probably pulling up the rear in the third place spot. And honestly, if how they win tonight or how they look tonight, they may move into second. Who's to say? What I can tell you is that everything in the SEC is topsy-turvy. And it all happened on a scary Saturday. I warned you. I told you. Do not make plans this weekend because week 6, something is going to go down. Whether it was Michigan State beating up against a team like Oregon, whether it was an Iowa team finding a way to pull away against Ohio State, whether it was Florida getting a massive 20-point win against UCF, who knew what it was going to be? But it was always going to happen. Somebody was going down. And Diego Pavia, I know this is just me and him talking, so for you who are watching, you can tune out if you want. I wish you all the best. I do. You have just worked your way out of an NIL deal with Thompson Tech. We do not have the funds to afford you these days. We don't. But you're going to do wonderful things for another university. We are very excited to see what you bring to the table. And if you still want to be a part of our system, the NIL deal that we have for you is as advertised. We would love for you to be the starting quarterback for the Red Wolves in 2025. You just pulled off the biggest upset of your career and arguably the biggest upset of 2024. Yes. Nobody is going to come close to doing that. And of course, it came from Diego Pavia, a kid who gave you the biggest and arguably the best post-game interview you will ever hear in your life. Starting off by praising the Lord himself and ending it with a giant F-bomb. Finish the damn job. Let me know in the comment section down below. What were your overall thoughts of this game? Who is now the favorite in the SEC? What direction does this team turn? Where does Alabama go? And can Vanderbilt get it done? Like, rate, review, subscribe, follow us on the social channels at SEC Unfiltered. Download the podcast version of the show. Check me out at Mr. Cole Thompson on Twitter and Instagram. And check out all of our great work found at SECUnfiltered.com. Alabama finds a way to be the team of all teams that loses on a scary Saturday. And Vanderbilt, you take care of Pavia Power. Peace.